Hello, ladies and Russ. I told you guys I would make you a video since we didn't get to Zoom on Tuesday. But I do want to talk to you specifically about reflections and rotations. So last week we talked about translations. So basically, if you are reflecting, that means that basically that means to flip a point, line, or figure over a line called the line of reflection. So you flip it, it's like a mirror image. The line of reflection can be either the x-axis or the y-axis. Or really, it could be any line on a coordinate plane, but in 8th grade, we're just simply focusing on reflecting something over the x or y axes. So the result of a reflection is the mirror image of the original figure. To reflect a figure, you're going to count how far away each point of the figure, each of the points of the figure are from the reflection line, then plot each point the same distance in the opposite direction. Okay, so what does that look like? Oh, and here's some rules. We're going to talk about rules today, which I don't really think you need many for reflection, but especially when we start rotating, those rules really can help people like me who's hard. It's hard for me to visualize turning something without literally doing it. So anyway, we'll talk about those rules in just a minute. But basically what happens when you reflect over the x-axis, the x-coordinate stays the same. The x-coordinate stays the same and the y-coordinate changes. Okay, so the x, whatever this number is, if this was a +3, it would stay a +3. Okay, but when you reflect it over the x-axis, the y-coordinate changes sign. So if this was a -4, the opposite of -4 is +4. Okay, so okay, well, I guess we'll talk about the y-axis in just a minute. So here we are reflecting across the x-axis. So remember the x-axis, these. So we're flipping this thing over the x-axis. So basically you take each point, you count toward the line of reflection, 1, 2 spaces, you keep going in the opposite direction, 1, 2, and A prime would be right there. All right, let's start with E. We're going to count toward the line of reflection. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right there is E prime. And then Y is 1 above, so Y prime is going to be 1 below. Then you connect those dots, if I could do that. And blue. Anyway, it should be a coordinate. It should be a congruent figure. You guys know how I am with straight lines. All right, so hopefully if you have these printed, you can practice the next one with me. So you're going to take each point, you're going to count toward the line of reflection and go the same amount of spots in the opposite direction. So this would be G prime. Q is 1, 2, 3, 4 above. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 below for Q prime. Q prime, C, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There's C prime and T prime, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's T prime. So our picture is congruent, but a mirror image. Bam, beautiful. Oh my goodness, I should be an art teacher. Oh, that's the more I try, the worse it gets. All right, so what we were talking about as far as those rules go, the x coordinate stays the same and the y coordinate changes signs, okay? So here E is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. So E is at 5, 4. But once we reflected it over the x-axis, it's still, E prime is still at +5, but now it's at -4. 5, -4. And we could show that is true for all of our points. The x stays the same and the y changes signs. Okay. All right, so you guys have this paper. You can try this one. You're going to flip up over the x-axis, count toward that line of reflection, and go the opposite direction. So now what happens when we reflect over the y-axis? Well, the x value changes signs, and this time the y value stayed the same. So just keep in mind what you're reflecting over. So here's our y-axis. So we're flipping this picture over the y-axis. So just like we were counting toward the x-axis earlier, this time we're going to count toward the y-axis. So we're counting 1, 2, 3 toward it. So we're going to keep going 3 in the opposite direction. 1, 2, 3. And here is G prime. L is 1 to the right, so L prime must be 1 to the left. And Q, we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, opposite direction, 1, 2, 3, 4. And there is Q prime. So when we connect the dots, we will get a congruent figure that is a mirror image. And then let's look at those rules. So let's take the original G. So the original G was at 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when we reflected it over the y-axis, G prime is now -3, +4. So our x value changed signs and our y values stayed exactly the same. All right, so you guys try example 4. Make sure you end up with a congruent figure. On this one, make sure you're going over the correct axis. Make sure you don't go down here. That's the x, correct? You're going this way. This is wrong. Oops. All right, so now let's describe the line of reflection. So make sure you pick the original. So here our black one is the original. We can tell that because the red one has the prime marks. So what happened here? It was a reflection over which axis? The x-axis, because it was flipped up. And what about this one? The original is our blue triangle because it doesn't have any prime marks. So what happened here? We had a reflection over the y-axis, because here's our y-axis. Here, this one's our x-axis. All right. Now, when you rotate, you're turning an object, okay? And in 8th grade, our center of rotation is always going to be the origin. As you get farther in high school, you'll have different centers of rotation, but in 8th grade, we're just doing the origin. So if you, just like the second hand on a clock, well, all the hands on a clock move in going to the right, correct? I don't know if that's flipping it on your camera, but anyway, so clockwise rotation turns an object to the right. Counterclockwise turns it in the opposite direction to the left. After you have turned your figure, the image and the original should be congruent. So the size and shape should not change at all. So let's consider these rotations about the origin. So if you turn anything 90 degrees, it's a quarter of a turn, right? So here is my 90-degree turn. If I turn something 180, basically I'm turning it upside down. What would be the next turn? 3/4 of a turn would be 270, right? 270 degrees, and 360 is a full turn. So we can either turn things 90 degrees clockwise or 90 degrees counterclockwise or 180. It doesn't matter if it's clockwise or counterclockwise. It's going to turn the figure upside down. So it doesn't matter which direction. And then if we're talking about, well, I'll get to 270 in a second. All right, so this is what I would write down, you guys. So if you are going 90 degrees clockwise, and I'm writing this down too, because I always have to look at my rules. That means we take our original numbers. The x coordinate moves to the back and becomes the opposite sign, and the y coordinate comes to the front and doesn't change. So write that down, and we're going to put these in a practice real soon. So 90 degrees counterclockwise, 90 degrees counterclockwise is the opposite. So we take our original xy. The y coordinate comes to the front and changes signs, and the y moves to the back and doesn't change. Now 180 is basically the numbers don't change positions, but both of their signs change. Okay. The numbers stay in their own places, their original places, but the signs change. All right, so let's take a look at this figure. So we are going to rotate this figure 90 degrees clockwise. All right. So in other words, we're taking this and we're turning it 90 degrees to the right. And I'm just going to write my rule on the screen so I can check it. This tells me you take the original coordinates. The y comes to the front and the x goes to the back and changes signs. So let's look at that. Here is a +1. We're going to move it to the back and it becomes a -1. The y, which is 4, comes to the front and stays the same. So letter C right here moves from 1, 4 to 1, 2, 3, 4, -1. There's C prime. All right, what's the next one? P prime. We're going to take our x, move it to the back, and it changes sign. So a negative becomes a positive. We take our 4, bring it to the front, and it stays the same. So P prime is going to move from here to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Right there. There is P prime. All right, the next one is T. So T's at -1, 1. So we're moving this X to the back. It changes signs. Our Y comes to the front and does not change. So T goes from here to a +1, 1 right here, T prime. And then finally, letter U, -3, 0. We're going to take that -3. We're going to send it to the back and change the sign. And then our Y value comes to the front, doesn't change. So instead of going left 3 and then stop, we're not going to go right or left. We're going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3. And here is U prime. So now when I connect those dots, I'm going to get a congruent figure. And that's what it looks like. Now, if you can imagine turning that and you see that clearly in your brain, then good for you. I don't have that capacity though. So that's why I rely so heavily on the rules. All right, so now it says we're going to rotate this figure 180 degrees. So we're going to basically turn this thing upside down. Like it says, like I said earlier, it doesn't matter which direction we go in, but basically what happens is both of our numbers stay the same number, except they both change signs, okay? So we're going to do A first. So A is at +2, -4. Lost my pen. +2, -4. They're going to stay in their position. They both change signs. So +2 becomes -2. -4 becomes +4. So A prime is at -2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right here, A prime. The next one, 5, 4 is going to become -5, +4. So go left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's H prime. P prime is going to be the opposite of 1 is -1. Is there any such thing as -0? No, it's just 0. So we're going to go left 1 and then we stop. And that's going to be P prime. And then the last one, Q, stay in the same position, both change to negatives, -4, -1. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, down 1, and there is Q prime. So as far as the rules, I think 180 degree rotation is probably the simplest, easiest to remember. Oh, that's awful. Anyway, there we go. All right, so let's practice one with counterclockwise, okay? So same figure, we're going to go counterclockwise. So I wrote my rules down. So I'm going to take my original. I'm going to bring my Y to the front, change the sign, take my X, send it to the back, and it doesn't change signs. So A prime, I'm going to take that X, send it to the back, and it stays the same sign. Y comes to the front and changes signs. So A prime, my original A is at 2, -4. We're going to go right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 2. and there's A prime. All right, next one, 5, -4. We're going to send that 5 to the back. We're going to bring that y to the front, change the sign, and then we're going to go right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go. This is H prime. Uh-oh, I went the other way. P prime, we're going to take the 1, send it to the back, bring the 0 to the front. There's no such thing as a -0. So we're going to go, don't go right or left, but go up 1, and that's P prime. P prime, and then Q, we're going to send the 4 to the back, bring the 1 to the front, change the sign. So that's going to be -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is Q prime. All right, so there's our 90 degrees counterclockwise. Now the only other thing, well, it didn't talk about 270, but that's okay. As long as you guys can do those 3, you're doing great. So use those rules. They'll help you. If you don't need them, then good. That's a great skill to have as well. All right, guys, I will see you Thursday for Zoom. Have a great week. Bye.